morning and welcome into Turning Point tonight. President Trump did 60 Minutes for the first time since the debacle happened in their 60 Minutes Kamala Harris interview, which was hilarious. Katie Porter and Adam Schiff both need to fire the people that let them post the ridiculously ugly pictures of themselves on social media. We will show you those pictures here on this show. Also, election night coming up tomorrow. How scared are the libs actually to possibly lose their seats? BLM is divesting. The founder is divesting one of her companies. There's a whole lot going on that we'll get to as much as we can here on Turning Point Tonight. My name is Joe Bob. Together, we are charting the course of America's cultural comeback. This is Turning Point Tonight. TBT@tpusa.com is the email if you'd like to email us. Send us in your comments, concerns, questions, criticisms even to TBT@tpusa.com. You should also go follow us on our social media accounts. Specifically, subscribe to the Turning Point Tonight YouTube channel, which is growing by leaps and bounds. You're not going to want to miss what is going on over there. You get the segments of this show, but as well as an exclusive segment that doesn't air anywhere else called One Last Point that you can only find on our Turning Point Tonight YouTube channel. So go subscribe there. Now, to the elections. How scared are the libs? Well, judging by what happened over the weekend, I would venture to guess really, really freaking scared. Why is that? Why do I have that premonition of how libs are behaving? Well, because they trotted out the most popular among the libs. Yes, President Obama was out stumping for candidates in both Virginia and New Jersey, both gubernatorial candidates who, I guess have a lead in the polling, but if we conservatives have recognized anything in the last several years, the polling is often very, very wrong, and, it just goes to show you that you need to get out and vote whenever it is that you can vote, because in so many states, you can vote literally whenever you want. But the bottom line here is Barack Obama, of all people, was stumping for the gubernatorial candidates in Virginia and New Jersey. Now, why does that matter? Well, if you're not caught up on how politics generally works in those states, they pretty dang blew most of the time. Glenn Youngkin is the exception in Virginia, but for the majority of the modern political era, Virginia has been reliably blue in all up and down the ballot. So has New Jersey, reliably blue up and down the ballot. The reason why it's significant that President Obama is stumping in those two places is because, wait a minute, are they scared? Are they nervous? Are they so afraid of potentially losing what are otherwise these big blue strongholds that they need to put the most popular Democrat in the country out on those campaign trails? Well, apparently, to me, even though I disagree with everything Obama says pretty much all the time, it is a good thing. It is a good sign to see him feeling like it's necessary to go out to these usually reliably blue places. Now, what's most interesting about this, and well, there's several very interesting components of this, is who he's running against, or who he's stumping for and advocating against in the great state of Virginia. We talked about this last week, but I think it's even more evident and abundantly funny now, considering that Obama is taken to the stage. The candidates in this. If you remember, not all that long ago, not even a year ago, actually probably a little over a year ago, my timeline's a little bit off, President Obama was telling a group of men why they should vote for Kamala Harris. And the answer, the reason that he gave is actually quite interesting. Now, I'm going to play this clip, but I did ask producer Glenn to either speed it up or chop out his pauses or something, because the man takes a minute and a half to say something that you could fit into 15 seconds. So we'll see what producer Glenn did with this clip. But watch Barack Obama telling people how to vote and why they should vote for Kamala Harris. Play this, cut one.
So if you don't mind, just for a second, I'm going to speak to y'all directly and say that when you have a choice that is this clear, when on the one hand you have somebody who grew up like you, knows you, went to college with you, understands the struggles and pain and joy that comes from those experiences, who's had to work harder and do more and overcome.
Producer Glenn, I think you could cut even more of that. But believe it or not, that clip was 1:12, and he cut it down to like 30 seconds. But if you missed it, President Obama said, "Oh, it needs to, take precedent, priority, people who grew up like us." What he's actually saying is, hey, vote for the black person because they understand you better than the other person in the race does. Not talking about policy, not talking about ideology, not talking about anything other than race, because President Obama loves to stoke the race hatred in this country. Remember, race relations got worse under Obama, not better. All that's to say is, I'm sure you know who's running for governor in the state of Virginia. President Obama now, though, is changing his tune. Hey, don't vote for the immigrant black lady. Vote for Abigail Spanberg instead, because, remember all the things I said about race previously? Just go ahead and forget all of that and instead vote for the white lady, because that's how I keep my corruption scandal going. Interestingly enough, President Obama has backed off of the vote for race and race only and is now going an entirely different direction, because it just so happens that the person in the race that is not his party is a black lady in Winsome Sears. Not all, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm a big fan of Winsome Sears and think she's a great advocate for freedom and the American experiment. But President Obama does not like that, which has prompted some hilarious political cartoons, which I will show you now. This is President Obama basically outlining what I just said. Into the 2024, we must support black women. And all of a sudden, now, beat it, black lady. I've got this other lady here who, we don't have any clips of her, but if you're a fan of the Jimmy Neutron show, I should have had producer Glenn pull this. Miss Fowler from Jimmy Neutron, kind of reminds me of her. But get out of here, black lady. We don't care about you anymore, even though just a year ago I was saying vote for this lady because she happens to be black. There is no reason for pulling this up. I just thought it was really interesting and funny and kind of indicative of how President Obama thinks about things. This kind of like brutalist mindset of, well, we have to say stupid things and do ridiculous, stupid things because that's the way that the stupid voters look at things, which is how he thinks. Not how I think, but it's how he thinks. The type of person who thinks that way also thinks, in a structural standpoint, in a similar manner. What do I mean by that? This is apropos of nothing, not even talking about elections, but I thought this was funny floating around when we're speaking about President Obama. The President Obama Presidential Library, which we've talked about numerous times here. I want to pull up this graphic. This is a side-by-side. If you're looking at the screen on your right is a picture of the President's Library, the Obama Foundation's library, which for some reason looks like a trash can that you'd find at a theme park. On the left is what appears to be its inspiration. It's just a North Korean border outpost, I think. I don't know if President Obama took the exact inspiration from this North Korean outpost, but it would appear to be so. I cannot verify that with any sort of journalistic integrity, but I would imagine that that's where he got his inspiration and his idea for his own presidential library. Again, I recognize that's apropos of nothing. It's not related to anything we're talking about. I just think it's funny, and I don't know. I like making fun of Obama, partly because I think he's very scared that he's actually going to be held accountable for the things that he did in office, because the precedent has been set that you can arrest presidents like the libs did with President Trump. But aside from that, interestingly enough, also in the election space, George Clooney, of all people, was giving some interviews over the weekend and admitted something that I thought was actually really interesting. And there's some really nuanced thoughts here that I think we all should take into account. But first, let me play you this clip. This is George Clooney, the actor turned political activist, who also wrote that op-ed saying, hey, we got to get rid of Joe Biden. Turns out, well, I don't know if it was any better or worse. It was just different. It was a bad candidate running against President Trump in Kamala Harris, but he was part of the group of Dems who got rid of the sitting president and made way for a coronation of Kamala Harris. Watch, this is what he said now regarding that choice in an interview that took place over the weekend. Watch this.
During the election, you threw yourself into politics with that guest essay in New York Times. Looking back, would you do that again?
Yes. We had a chance. I wanted there to be, as I wrote in the op-ed, a primary. Let's battle test this quickly and get it up and going. I think the mistake with it being Kamala is that she had to run against her own record, and it's very hard to do if the point of running is to say, I'm not that person. You know, it's hard to do. And so she was given a very tough task. I think it was a mistake, quite honestly, but we are where we are.
This is actually really interesting here because I am a proponent of Kamala Harris running again. Like I mentioned, the first stop on the Megyn Kelly tour, which I will be in New York with her this Wednesday, as well as Jacksonville, Florida, then Miami on Friday, and then Duluth, Georgia, Atlanta area on Saturday. Not to promo that, but the first stop on that tour was Donald Trump Jr., where he roundly endorsed Kamala Harris to win the Democratic nomination for president in 2028, which I am a huge supporter of because I believe firmly, and as the president's son believes, she will lose 50 states. Usually you say 48 because you exclude California and New York, but honest to God, I think she might even lose California and New York because she's such a bad candidate. Here's what I'm concerned about here, though, with George Clooney. Producer Glenn and I were talking briefly about this before we hopped on this segment. My concern is that they're starting to figure out, oh, the whole DEI thing doesn't exactly work. Just because she's a woman and just because she happens to be a woman of color, that doesn't excuse her, like George Clooney said, from her own record. Which is, by the way, hilarious that he actually said that. I disagree with George Clooney politically on just about everything, but at the same time, I can agree with him that Kamala Harris's biggest problem was being Kamala Harris. Like, her biggest campaign hurdle when running for president is that she, in fact, herself was an idiot, and there's no overcoming that, as George Clooney so eloquently stated in his, yeah, we probably screwed up here in a lot of different ways. But the bottom line is, I am in some way at least a little bit concerned that the libs are starting to figure that out because, as we've seen, they have the entire media on their side. Everything that libs do, the media just eats up, and we're chipping away at it. We're trying to take that power out of the libs' hands. But at the same time, while it continues to be on that side, the last thing we want is for them to wise up. The last thing we want is for them to go, hey, Kamala Harris, let's not do that again. That was a terrible idea. I am of the mind, in the same way that Donald Trump Jr. is, let's get her on the ballot. If not her, Jasmine Crockett. And if not her, AOC. We will win 48 or 50 states, if you exclude or include California and New York, if that's the case. What I'm concerned about is guys like George Clooney recognizing, oh yeah, Kamala Harris was actually a terrible idea, and not having a primary and not battling it out was not actually good. The American people didn't actually like that, on top of the fact that she was a terrible candidate to begin with. The more they figure that out, I guess makes for better competition, but do you really want that in your political races? I want good competition in my sports. As far as political races, I want conservatives to sweep, just clean house and win everything all the time. And the more that libs start to realize, hey, Kamala Harris was a bad idea, all of the identity politics nonsense is not actually working as it used to anymore, them figuring that out is going to make it more difficult for conservatives. So while I obviously disagree with George Clooney on a lot of different things, I think I might agree with him that libs had a bad showing in the last presidential cycle, and my concern is that they're going to figure that out and make our job a little bit more difficult. Like I said, give Jasmine Crockett the microphone. I would love to see her run for president of the United States. Jasmine Crockett has my endorsement for the Democratic nomination for the president of the United States in 2028. I would love to see that happen, and I would love to see J.D. Vance walk into the White House winning 50 states. But a lot to get to here. The founder of BLM, interestingly enough, is dissolving her consulting company, which afforded her many, many millions of dollars in houses and real estate, and interestingly enough, selling those houses as well. We'll talk to Ari Hoffman about that whole process. The Dodgers won the World Series, which I probably should have mentioned in the intro, but we're getting to it now. Was the Los Angeles win peaceful and prosperous, or did they tear the city to shreds? I bet you can guess. We'll also talk to Monica Paige about the new White House guidance around journalists, as well as Katie Porter and Adam Schiff need to fire anybody who lets them post on social media immediately. And that's my small piece of advice that I will give to libs who I fervently disagree with, but they have to know. You got to fire the people that let you post in the pictures that we will show you here on this show. TPT@tpusa.com is the email. You can email us anytime you want, whether you agree with everything we've ever said or you're wrong. We love each and every one of your emails. Ari Hoffman is up next. Don't go away. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to Turning Point Tonight, where together we are charting the course of America's cultural comeback. TPT@tpusa.com is the email if you'd like to send us your thoughts, comments, concerns, even criticisms. TPT@tpusa.com. You can also go subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Turning Point Tonight YouTube channel, which is a channel growing by leaps and bounds. I don't know if I can say this, but it may in fact be the fastest growing YouTube channel on the conservative right. Again, not entirely sure if that's true or verifiable, but there were more subscribers than last time I checked than there were prior to that. So it's only fair to say that might in fact be true. The Turning Point Tonight YouTube channel is where you're going to get exclusive content that we can't fit in on this show because we have a limited time constraint. The internet, on the other hand, is unlimited. So TPT, Turning Point Tonight on YouTube, as well as all of our social media platforms, Rumble, X, Instagram, Facebook, all of them. Just go subscribe there. You get to see the content that you can't see here. Unfortunately, folks, there's no easy way to say this. I have lied to you. Total accident, by the way. But Ari Hoffman will not be joining us on this segment. He's actually going to go in the segment following this because we got to talk about President Trump on 60 Minutes. It was the first time in a long time that President Trump did the flagship news show of America, which I think is accurate to call 60 Minutes, even though they've entirely lost their way over the last couple months. Hopefully they're riding the ship over there at CBS as they have new ownership, new leadership. Maybe we'll see some tact towards fairness. Hopefully, I'm optimistic. I'm an optimistic, very cynical person, which I know are kind of contradictory, but I believe that possibly they'll right the ship, and also in my heart I believe that they won't. But President Trump did an episode of 60 Minutes in which a lot of things were discussed, and I want to play you a couple clips from that episode. It was Norah O'Donnell who was interviewing the president, who was not a fan, if you remember anything from, the debates, from prior interviews with President Trump. But interestingly enough, President Trump, not surprisingly, was hilarious on that. And the funniest thing he said, we're going to save for the end. But this I thought was the clip that's been making the rounds, causing the biggest buzz. Glenn, this is clip 4 of the president being asked about ICE and whether or not the border activity has been thorough enough. Watch this.
More recently, Americans have been watching videos of ICE tackling a young mother, tear gas being used in a Chicago residential neighborhood, and the smashing of car windows. Have some of these raids gone too far?
No, I think they haven't gone far enough because we've been held back by the judges, by the liberal judges that were put in by Biden and by Obama.
You're okay with those tactics?
Yeah, because you have to get the people out. You know, you have to look at the people. Many of them are murderers. Many of them are people that were thrown out of their countries because they were, criminals.
I just love this because look at her face. Well, that's fine. It's like she thought she had a gotcha moment. President Trump, ICE has tackled a mother. Okay, well, what did that mother do? Why was she in the country illegally? What crimes did she possibly allegedly commit? And President Trump does not take the bait at all, says, no, they haven't gone far enough, which is a hilarious and also very accurate answer. I don't think we've gone far enough. You know why? Because far enough would be getting the 11 million people who came in under the Biden administration out of the country, not to mention the 15 million who are already here. In other words, until we have purged ourselves of all of the people that came into the country illegally, who don't share the language, who don't share the values, who don't know the language, who don't know all of the things that you need to do to become a United States citizen, or at least a functioning member of our United States society, until all of those people are gone, until bye-bye, adios to all of them, no, we haven't gone far enough. And yeah, are there going to be mishaps? Are there going to be rough videos? That's just what enforcing the law looks like. You know who you blame is the previous administration who let all the people into the country illegally, that has now made it a priority for this administration to have to get those people out. enforcing the law doesn't look like this nice, sweet. You know what? How about this? How about this, Nora O'Donnell? Until the people who are here illegally all start going, oh yeah, totally, no problem. I'll go right with you. Until they are super polite about being arrested or super polite about having to be deported or even self-deport. Until that happens, guess what? You're going to see some rough tactics necessarily being used because, well, you have to get the people out of. If a criminal is doing something illegal, and law enforcement is not allowed to use force on that individual to subdue them and end the threat to the surrounding civilians, then what the heck are we doing? I love the fact that he did not bend on that at all. Speaking of not bending, this is a clip talking about the DOJ. This is cut 3. This is I think President Trump is one of the best people at this. When you talk about like media and media interaction, there's a lot of nuance that goes into it. There's a lot of thought that has to go into it. And part of being really, really good at the media, and President Trump is writing, editing, and then executing in real time in the moment, which is not easy to do, but President Trump does it so well. This is him being asked about the DOJ and prosecuting people who allegedly committed crimes that we all saw and all witnessed, and what he thinks about it. Check this out, clip 3.
James Comey, John Bolton, Letitia James were all recently indicted. There's a pattern to these names. They're all public figures who have publicly denounced you. Is it political retribution?
You know what? You know who got indicted? The man you're looking at. I got indicted, and I was innocent. And here I am because I was able to beat all of the nonsense that was thrown at me. And yet, when you go after a dirty cop like Comey, or a guy like Bolton, who I hear I don't know anything about it. I hear he took records all over the place. Who knows? Letitia James is a terrible, dishonest person, in my opinion.
Did you instruct the Department of Justice to go after
Not
her?
in any way, shape, or form. No, you don't have to instruct them because they were so dirty, they were so crooked, they were so corrupt that the honest people we have, Pam Bondi's doing a very good job.
I know I said I was going to be optimistic about CBS, but did you hear how she couched that question? Hey, these people have all been critical of you. Oh, okay, fine. If you're critical of the president, you're allowed to break the law with no limits whatsoever. You're just allowed to do anything you want because if he prosecutes you, then it's definitely political. And I love the answer there. No, this is so dirty in the fact that we've been dealing with this sort of corruption for so long. Everybody knows that this is how it needs to go if we're going to uphold our priority of enforcing the law in this country. Lastly, I want to get to this. This is, well, actually, you know what? To further hint on that, this is obviously an evolving thing going on. The government shutdown is still happening, which I have yet to notice. I might notice on some flights later in this week. Because, you know, maybe air traffic controllers might take some time off depending on, without getting into all of the nuances there. For the most part, like I haven't really noticed that the government shutdown has happened. The food stamps, the SNAP programs, the welfare that people are getting in order to spend taxpayer money on very nice high-ticket items, which if you don't think is happening, you're a fool. It's definitely happening. There are so many places that say, we accept EBT, where I go, why does that place accept EBT? Anyways, stop going off track here, Joe Bob. The point is that those were set to expire November 1st. The Trump administration said, yeah, we're just going to let them expire. But a judge said, no, you have to come up with the money in order to cover the SNAP/welfare/food stamp programs. Now, what the libs won't tell you is that, well, the Trump administration is going, okay, well, the court said that we have to do this, so we're going to have to go find some money somewhere and find out how to at least partially pay these to satisfy the courts. In other words, all of the things that the libs do, defying the courts in so many ways, President Trump has not done, but has been accused of doing. So, all that to be said, the Trump administration not defying the courts until they defy the courts blatantly and openly, which the libs say that they're doing, but they're not actually, we don't have a problem. He's just a guy trying to run the White House in the most effective and most efficient way possible. All of that to say, here's the funniest clip. Cut 5.
Zorhan Mandami, 34-year-old Democratic socialist, He's the front runner.
Communist, not socialist, communist. He's far worse than a socialist.
Some people have compared him to a left-wing version of you, charismatic, breaking the old rules. What do you think about that?
Well, I think I'm a much better looking person than him, right?
Classic Trump. Oh, he's uglier than me. But, you know, it's subjective. You can't actually... Here's the thing. I also think, too, libs on Twitter or X were like, President Trump thinks he's better looking than Mom Donnie, who's, you know, 30-something years old and has a great smile, and President Trump is 80, almost 80 years old, and... Nobody's taking this seriously. It's a joke. It's a joke from a funny guy who happens to be a very effective president as well, clearly making a joke of a ridiculous statement. Yeah, Mom Donnie is a left-wing version of you. I don't think so. He's not nearly as pretty. Hilarious. Only a TDS lib would get their panties wadded up in a bunch over this sort of thing. Hilarious. Overall, just classic Trump. So excited that got to 60 minutes because I do know that a bunch of libs watch 60 minutes. And not that we're going to change their minds on this particular interview, but maybe you see the lighter side of the lighthearted Trump takes sometimes, at least on your lib news outlets. A lot to get to. I will not lie to you this time. Ari Hoffman is coming up to talk about, well, there's a lot of things to talk about, but specifically BLM and the devolving of their crazy communist organization over there, as well as his take on whether or not we should let New York City just crash into socialistic chaos. Is that a good thing for the laboratories of democracy? Where should the laboratories of democracy be focused on? Will the other laboratories, the other states, the other municipalities recognize that? All of those questions will be answered by Ari Hoffman. And then we're going to talk to Monica Paige. I don't have to tease you on all of this sort of stuff. Great portion of the show coming up next, right after the break. Don't go away. Welcome back to Turning Point Tonight, where together we are charting the course of America's cultural comeback. TPT at tpusa.com is the email if you want to send your thoughts, comments, concerns, even criticisms. We're not libs. We don't censor your criticisms. TPT at tpusa.com is the email address. Also, subscribe to the Turning Point Tonight YouTube channel that has exclusive content. We just can't fit into the short time period we have here together on Real America's Voice, but you can find it on our Turning Point YouTube channel as well as Rumble and all the other social media platforms. Joining us now is a show favorite, Ari Hoffman, host of the Ari Hoffman Show. Ari, it's good to see you not beleaguered by the godless hellhole that you live in Seattle. And sorry if that's offensive, but I have a feeling you may agree. Good to see Ari.
Great to see you too, buddy. And yes, I do agree with you. Unfortunately, I wish it was the city I moved to when I first moved here.
Yeah, but you know, I love Seattle. I also love San Francisco, and I want those places to go. I also love Portland. I'd love for those places to go back to normal insanity because that I don't know, it would make it a better vacation place. But Ari, we unfortunately have missed the boat. We have not been good enough at separating idiots from their money as the BLM folks have been. Patrisse Cullors, who was one of the founders of the BLM organization, is now dissolving their consulting firm she has with her wife, who funneled money from an organization in the United States to an organization in Canada, and then that Canadian organization bought some multi-million-dollar properties. I unfortunately don't live in a multi-million-dollar Beverly Hills mansion, and therefore I am kicking myself for not trying to start a race war and enrich myself. That was a mistake on my part. Ari, just your general thoughts, because I got a clip I want to show you, but your general thoughts here on the BLM folks dissolving all the companies that they started, trying to avoid any sort of prosecution from the administration who's taken a hard look at them.
Well, the question is it like the movie Boiler Room, where they just have a whole bunch of shredders going through all the documents trying to destroy everything in case the DOJ is coming their way? I mean, back in 2020, I was asking the question of where is all this money going? They're raising millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars. Where is it actually going? And let's not forget, I wasn't the only one asking that question, and conservative media wasn't the only one asking that question. BLM chapters were saying, you've raised all this money. It was supposed to go to us. Where is all that money right now? And then these bombshell reports come out showing how the founders of BLM, or the people who are assuming the mantle of BLM, were using it to buy these big luxury homes. There should have been an investigation when their tax records were incomplete. And for some reason, it wasn't done back then, probably because the Biden administration said these are allies of ours. We're not going to make problems for them. It actually goes to show you the weaponization of the justice system. It's not just for attacking people, but it's for saying we're not going to go after them if they are our friends. And that's what should have happened at the time. This should have been apolitical, because Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or the auto pen or whoever it was should have said, hey, you know what, guys? We want to know what happened to all our constituents' money. Or they could have been giving it to us for elections.
Yeah, they could have been spending it on me. You bring up a good point. It's interesting too from a nonprofit organizational standpoint. There's a clip that we don't have handy because I'm just thinking about it right now, where Patrisse Cullors is talking to somebody interviewing her, and they say, "Well, what do your 990s show?" Which is a form that you have to fill out if you're a nonprofit. It shows who gave you money, where that money went, and she goes, "What are you talking about? Well, I don't even know what that is." And this is like 5 years into running the organization. She's like, I have no idea what paperwork I'm supposed to file with the IRS. In other words, we're doing all of this illegally. They have since sold their joint LA mansion that the Patrisse Cullors and her wife had. But I think kind of more to the heart of it, I want to play you this clip. It is where, well, just I'll briefly outline. It's this clip that we've all seen a bajillion times. It is this lady saying, well, we're trained Marxists. Now, it's a little bit longer because I left some of the stuff in there for obvious reasons that I'll explain in a second. But check this out, and I want to get your kind of overall broad thoughts of BLM and how it fits in with the Marxist attempted takeover of the United States. Check this out, clip one.
I also think that it might... I think of a lot of things. The first thing I think is that we actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on sort of ideological theories. And I think that what we really try to do is build a movement that could be utilized by many, many Black folk.
Ari, I left that clip long because I always think it's fun to watch people who have no idea what they're talking about try and talk. We are... But they're trained Marxists. They said as much. Overall, unfortunately, we're seeing a resurgence of communism. We'll talk about the NYC mayoral race in just a second. But considering the fact that they outright said it and companies still gave them money, do you think these Fortune 500 companies that gave a ton of money to BLM have learned their lesson? Is there any actual redemption for them? Where does the culture lie around their acceptance of people who outright said we're trained Marxists?
I'm going to have a more cynical view of this. I love that a lot of us right now are saying, oh, well, now they're on Team Trump. Now they're on MAGA because, look, they're doing all the right things. No, a corporation's a corporation. It's looking out for its own best interests. During 2020, what happened was you had these activists calling up the corporation. It was like that episode of Seinfeld. How come you're not wearing the ribbon? How come you're not posting the black box? Right? That was their thing. And then when they did it, they still attacked them in Seattle. You had the Amazon and Whole Foods and all these locations had the Black Lives Matter signs up, and they were still lighting them on fire and smashing out their windows and still destroying all the Starbucks.
Jeez.
The corporations just don't want to be dinged by whoever's in power. And that gets back to the original problem. The corporations never should have taken a side. You sell sneakers, sell sneakers. You sell footballs, sell footballs. Whatever the case may be, you should have just done that. But now by getting into politics, now they got to swing whichever way the wind blows. And what I found encouraging was I thought President Trump was going to win many points along the way. But when I saw the corporations getting on Team Trump, I go, well, he's definitely going to win because these guys think he's going to win. What I'm concerned about is in the next election cycle, whether it's J.D. Vance versus AOC or whatever crazy combination we have to deal with in the next election, you can actually track how this is going based on who the corporations think is going to win and who they're backing.
That's actually fairly solid analysis there. If they think he's going to win, they probably have some good insight into what's going on. You remind me of I forget what the year, probably mid 90s or something. Michael Jordan was asked if he would endorse, I think, a North Carolina candidate for something. And the guy was a Democrat, and he said no, because Republicans buy sneakers too, which sounds like the position that you would like to take for corporations is just stay out of it entirely. We'll let the elections play out as they will, and don't try and push your weight around. Yeah, maybe there's some redemption. Maybe they're just being entirely cynical. It's hard to find somebody more cynical than me. Ari, I think you might have done it. But speaking of cynical, I'm actually super curious about your take on this. George Will, conservative nowadays-ish, was on Bill Maher's show and was asked about Ma'am Danny over there in New York City, election happening tomorrow. I want to play this clip and get your take on whether or not this is a good approach to how to deal with socialist, communist, crazy people, or maybe we should try our best to make sure we don't have to run these experiments. Check this out. Interesting thought here from George Will.
The guy running in New York, Mandami, right? Okay, who's like a straight up communist. I mean, he is. He talks about, the things that communists say. I mean, he wants free grocery stores, free buses.
I want him to win.
You want him to win?
Yeah. I think every 20 years or so.
Wait.
We need every 20 years or so, we need a conspicuous, confined experiment with socialism so we can crack it up again. Socialist slogan used to be, workers of the world unite, you have nothing to lose but your chains. The new socialist slogan is, trust us, this time it won't be a mess.
So Ari, you hear George Will saying, I want him to win because we need confined examples of how bad of an idea this is. Is that your take? What do you think about letting the laboratories of democracy do their work? Or are you somewhat like me and not necessarily trust the other laboratories to watch what's going on in the socialist laboratory and be able to recognize that and go, oh yeah, let's not do that? Your thoughts?
Can we let the laboratory be Venezuela? Can we let the laboratory be Russia? Why does it have to be here? Because I'm the guy who lives in Seattle, and we've done this socialist experiment literally for years now. 4 years. We had one of the top communist Marxists in the country, Kshama Sawant, on our Seattle City Council, and we are still suffering from her effects. For example, $20 minimum wage, that was started here by her. Then it was copied in California and destroyed California restaurant industries, and you have all these fast food joints that had to fire a whole bunch of people, and now they're talking about $30, $40 an hour, $50 an hour. What's the ceiling? Here's the other thing. These bad policies do not go away just because somebody gets elected, somebody more normal, somebody more mainstream. First of all, in a place like Seattle, they're inching their way back to common sense, and now they're about to elect a socialist mayor, just like Mamdani. So they are going back that way because they said, well, we only took an inch this way and we've survived the other thing before. Maybe it's not so bad. But they didn't do anything to repeal those policies that are destroying Seattle, so they're still destroying Seattle. Look at President Trump right now, the mess he has to clean up. Think of how much more successful he would have been if he didn't have to solve the inflation crisis, if he didn't have to solve the border crisis, if he didn't have to solve all these problems. We could be expanding and growing and doing new things, not fixing the things the Democrats screwed up last time around.
Oh, that's a great point. And I would even probably go even further saying if, the libs didn't screw everything up to begin with, President Trump probably would still be in real estate in New York City. Probably been like, yeah, I don't need to go run and save this country from itself. Things would probably be just going swimmingly. I think you might have convinced me. I am generally of the laboratories of democracy theory, but I love that. Yeah, let's let the laboratory be Venezuela or literally anywhere, France, and we can watch it over there. We don't have to do it here because I think I don't know. Maybe it's the cynicism we've got going here. I don't necessarily trust the other people in the other laboratories to look at the laboratory that's doing the worst thing effectively and make accurate decisions from there. Ari Hoffman, host of the Ari Hoffman Show, thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Always a pleasure, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Coming up next, we're going to check in with Turning Point's White House correspondent Monica Paige, as well as check in on the beleaguered city of Los Angeles, which suffered some riots because they won a World Series, and people are just fine with that happening, I guess. tpt@tpusa.com is the email address. We'll be right back after the break. Don't go away. Welcome back to Turning Point Tonight, where together we are charting the course of America's cultural comeback through the mockery generally of terrible lib ideas. TPT at tpusa.com is the email address if you'd like to send us your thoughts, comments, concerns, even criticisms. TPT at tpusa.com. Also go subscribe to our YouTube channel, Turning Point Tonight, growing by leaps and bounds, by the way, and you're missing out if you're not there also on our YouTube channel, where there's exclusive content that we just can't cram into the show here on Real America's Voice. It is time to check in with Turning Point's White House correspondent, Monica Paige, at the White House as it gets darker and darker and darker as the unconstitutional time change has befallen us all yet again. I'm not going to go into a diatribe about time change, but Monica, good to see you. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. Big things happened at the White House. President Trump doing a bunch of things regarding campaigns and elections, specifically in New York, in New Jersey, in Virginia, in California even, but I'm not entirely sure how much he's going to participate there. What's the president got on the schedule this evening?
Well, you're right. It's going to be a very busy evening for the president tonight. He's calling into New Jersey and Virginia's tele-rallies. He'll be speaking to officials. I believe he's speaking to people on the phone pretty much all day today. There's been a Marine standing outside the West Wing Oval Office pretty much all afternoon. So I'm assuming that business is going down in the Oval Office as it stands. But he is closely following the races in Virginia and New Jersey. We've got Jack Ciattarelli versus Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey. We've got Abigail Spanberger and Winsome Sears in Virginia. Of course, the president really pouring in a lot of money into both of those campaigns for the Republican side, of course, for both New Jersey and Virginia. We're going to be watching that very, very closely. I know here at Turning Point USA, we've really been pushing to get out the vote, especially as it pertains to New Jersey, because New Jersey's facing a really close race. That could be maybe a 1%, 1-point race. You don't even know. It's going to be very, very close. And I think it's going to be the same kind of feeling on the ground in Virginia, the next town over from us here. But all eyes are going to be on this race. Everyone's going to be heading out to the polls tomorrow. So people will be up all night. I know that it's daylight savings here. You're hearing a lot of yawns at the White House. So people are still kind of getting used to the time change. But it's going to be a long day for a lot of these reporters, especially tomorrow, as the numbers come in, as the polls open and close, beginning and end of the day. So the president's definitely keeping a very close eye on both of those races.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the show of how tight some of those usually reliable blue states have been. Yeah. And, hopefully everybody's hoping for some good news coming out of that. You talked about the journalists going to be up late doing a lot of work, especially when the numbers start coming out of all of those very important elections. Speaking of journalists, there are some new guidance. There's some new rules. Tell us about that. We're just about 2 weeks away, 2 weeks past the utter conniption and meltdown over the Pentagon's very reasonable rules, and now the White House seems like they're doing a similar thing. Tell us about that, Monica.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly when these new rules have just started to be coming in, and that's what comes right after the Pentagon, like you just mentioned. So how it usually works in the West Wing of the White House is that, you have your lower press area where you can kind of check in with some of the press people down there. What's going on the schedule today? Is there something I should know about? What's, for planning purposes only, what should we be aware of? And then you've got the upper press area. So that's where the press secretary is, the senior communications advisors up there, and a lot of the upper level staff are up there where you can make appointments to meet with them, or maybe even just check in on them and get some scoops or some exclusives, and even exclusive comments as well. But the recent rules just came down this past Friday. We got an email from the White House saying that the upper press area, where we could usually go and check in and stop in, say hello, is now going to be off limits for reporters. Now, while many think that this is something that's causing, a meltdown here at the White House, it's not exactly unprecedented. Bill Clinton did a very similar thing back in 1993, where he blocked reporters from the upper press area when he took office. But here's the thing, is that there are some new rules, some new ways information is being spread within the White House by the National Security Council, kind of taking on more of a responsibility as far as information is passed. So because they are mostly established in the West Wing, they want to crack down on any sort of leaks, any sort of national security issues or information. Stephen Chung, he's one of the communications secretaries up there, is one of the top ones, and the president's assistant, he posted on X recently saying there have been reporters that have recorded secret conversations on their phones when meeting with these top advisors and top officials in the White House. And there have been reporters that have had their ear to the door trying to eavesdrop in on specific conversations behind closed doors. People are trying to listen in and eavesdrop. That's not okay. That's not appropriate. So the White House is putting an end to it, saying, listen, if you want to get an interview or if you wanted to have a meeting or talk to any of these upper level officials at the White House, set up an appointment. Just email us, reach out to us. It's really not as difficult or as crazy as the left wing media is trying to make it out to be. But it's the same kind of guidance as the Pentagon, exactly what you just mentioned. But of course, the left is melting down, saying, "Oh, this is an end to transparency at the White House. This is unprecedented. We've never seen anything like this before." That's not exactly true. You could still get your information. You could just talk to the lower press area, schedule an appointment. You'll be fine.
Well, Monica, you know where I stand. If you can't wear a banana suit in the Oval Office as a journalist or reporter, that is censorship in my United States of America. Monica Paige, Turning Point's White House correspondent, thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks so much, you guys.
Thank you. Coming up next here on Turning Point tonight, the Dodgers win the World Series, and LA was peacefully asleep at night. No, I'm just kidding. They ruined the place. Also, Adam Schiff and Katie Porter need to fire who lets them post on social media. That and more coming up after the break. Don't go away. Welcome back to Turning Point tonight, where together we are charting the course of America's cultural comeback, generally through lib bad ideas. TPT@tpusa.com is the email if you want to email us any thoughts that you have through the course of the show or even after. If there's something we got to be looking at, TPT@tpusa.com. Also go subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is growing by leaps and bounds. You're not going to want to miss what's going on there, which can't, because time constraints, can't necessarily all air here. I don't always like being eccentric, yelly guy. Actually, I rarely do that. But on this particular occasion, it blows my freaking mind as to why we as a society and a culture are just okay with when certain teams win certain sporting games, we are just accepting of the fact of, they're going to trash the place. I wanted the Dodgers to win, and if you did too, you're also an American, because we can't let America's pastime be won by freaking Canadians. At the same time, I recognized, well, shoot, if the Dodgers win World Series Game 7 on a Saturday night, they're going to trash LA. Why do we allow this to happen? Why is it that we are okay and accepting as a society of, well, they won. Sure, they're going to cost taxpayers millions of dollars in the heightened police force that must be necessary and in the destruction that they're going to cause, burning cars, lighting cop cars on fire, overturn, whatever it is that winning cities do. Why do we allow for this to happen? Maybe I'm just going to transition my sports rooting interest into cities that are run well. Like, I don't know. I can't think of any big cities that are run well, but I'm going to find a city where freaking conservatives are in charge and they don't let you trash the town when your team wins. And I'm just going to exclusively vote for those people to win all of the sports. That's what I'm going to do. That's where my rooting interest is going to go in sports wise. So you don't trash a city for no particular reason. Speaking of things for no particular reason, let's play this. This is Meghan Markle who posted a video. She's getting a lot of online criticisms after the Dodger won. She's claiming to be a Dodgers fan. Her husband, former Prince of England, I think he's still a prince, I'm not entirely sure, was rooting for the Blue Jays, because the English crown still technically rules over Canada, so I think he has to be a Blue Jays fan. For yourself, email us, tpt@tpusa.com. Is this a genuine reaction of Meghan Markle, the least genuine person on the face of the earth, at least according to the internet? Is this genuine cheering, or did she set up this camera specifically to get this social media clip? Watch this. I hated every second of that. And as soon as it started, I apologize for showing that to you. My ears hurt because of, wow. Okay, so I've been teasing this all show, so we got to get to it. Halloween was over the weekend, and two people that need to fire their campaign staff. One, Adam Schiff, Senator, D, California, and Katie Porter, who we've mocked endlessly on this show because she's very mockable. First, well, let's pull up some of these photos. Go ahead and pull up. This is Katie Porter. Who in God's name allowed this woman to post this photo? On Halloween of all the, she's not even dressed up. She looks like the scariest thing that I would have seen on Halloween. And yet somebody on her team said, yeah, go ahead and post that. That's fine. Next is Adam Schiff, Senator, California, in this ridiculous hat. I almost tweeted, this is the gayest hat I've ever seen, but he did happen to be in West Hollywood, which is known for that sort of thing. So it kind of made sense. Anyways, that's going to do it for us here at Turning Point tonight. Really appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. We will possibly see you tomorrow, depending on the election coverage here on Real America's Voice, but we will see you the next time we see you. God bless America. So much grace has been given to the Trump administration, says absolutely no one. This is one last point. It's really interesting the perspectives people have in the differences of how it is that they are treated. There's a video we're going to play here of Michelle Obama talking to, I think it's Good Morning America, where she's talking about, the struggles that she and her husband had to endure in the White House, as opposed to what? Is this different for you guys and it's not for everybody else? Everybody else had this, this fantastic grace period from the media, except for, conservatives, or except for, Trump, or except for, anybody else. Bottom line is, she says something that is so ubiquitously untrue that it kind of makes you think, oh my gosh, yeah, if you actually believe this, Michelle, I could see why you think the country is the way that it is not. There's a certain element of, you're only able to dream up fascinations or inconsistencies with reality if you believe something like this. I'll stop talking about it and just play it really quick. This is Michelle Obama on Good Morning America. Watch this.
You said, we were all too aware that as a first black couple, we couldn't afford any mistakes. Woman, I was under a particularly white,
Dang it.
hot.
I'm sorry. I muted the wrong one to cough. Okay, I'm just going to play it from this part again.
We were all too aware that as a first black couple, we couldn't afford any missteps.
Yeah.
And you also say, as a black woman, I was under a particularly white, hot glare. Did you feel that?
For sure. You can't afford to get anything wrong because you didn't get at least until the country came to know us, we didn't get the grace that I think some other families have gotten.
What in the hell is she talking about? Like, just honest to God. So okay, yes, the Trump administration has received tons of grace from the DC establishment, the political elite, the media, the mainstream media. They've received so much grace that the Obamas did not get because they're black, which, by the way, is totally untrue, right? Like, we're being sarcastic and satirical when we say that the Trump administration has gotten any grace or any leeway from all of the power players in Washington, D.C. To assume that would make you crazy. And then on top of that, to inaccurately diagnose what's happening, but then to say because we're black, blows my mind. I honest to God don't know where to go with this, because it's so outside of the realm of reality that it's kind of difficult to even make any arguments against it, right? Like, the basis of it is untrue, and then the diagnosis of the untrue thing is also ridiculous, which leaves you in a spot of going like, do we even take this seriously? Like, is this even a thing that we like pretend like, oh yeah, well, let's look at this from a serious and political and media scope. Let's look at this as a real complaint and a real concern. I don't know that there has been a president in the history of this country that has gotten more leniency, more grace, especially early on, than Barack Obama. I don't know that there has been a president that has been able to skate by and avoid the criticisms of the mainstream media like Barack Obama had and continues to have. Remember, Barack Obama, when campaigning for Kamala Harris this last cycle, reiterated many of the lies that have been debunked thoroughly over the last 10 years, specifically the good people on both sides thing. Barack Obama himself said that. He knows it's not true. We know it's not true. Everybody with half an inclination to dive into something at a minimal level knows that it's not true, and yet he still said it and suffered zero political consequences for it. So in what world, Michelle, was there some lack of grace period that you didn't get because of the melanin content in your skin that other presidents have gotten? When was the Trump grace period? I must have missed that. I must have completely surpassed my recognition of it because I must have been asleep. I don't know. Maybe I was. The 30-second grace period that the Trump administration got, which, if there was any, it was about that long. I probably was, I don't know, asleep. Actually, that's probably not true. I was probably eating pizza because of the time change during the inauguration, which is the only time frame that 30 seconds could have happened. I probably was getting pizza because I was on, the West Coast. So it was 9 p.m., but it was midnight on the East Coast. And so during that 30-second grace period that the media gave the president, I probably was at a late night pizza place. That's why I missed it. Bottom line here is the grace period that is afforded to others was apparently not afforded to the Obamas, which is the opposite of true. And the opposite of true happened because, of course, they were black, which, not to go in on this, do you think, and I'm genuinely curious, email the show, tbt@tpusa.com. Producer Glenn has some thoughts. 1 second, Glenn. Or comment on YouTube. Do you think that Barack Obama got more votes or less votes because he was black? I would stake my entire net worth on the fact that he got more votes. Do you think Hillary Clinton got more votes because she was a woman or less? All of the things that libs complain about constantly, generally speaking, are the opposite of what they actually are. Hillary Clinton got more votes because she was a woman. She lost because she's a terrible candidate, but she did better than she would have had she been a man. Barack Obama got more votes because he was black, not because of he didn't get less votes because he claims, the country is racist, which is just factually untrue. And race relations got worse under Obama, but we don't need to go into that whole thing. But the bottom line here is Barack Obama got more votes because he was black. Hillary Clinton got more votes because she was a woman. And yet continually there's a claim of, we didn't get the same grace period that other presidents get. Okay. Well, let me know when that grace period starts for the Trump administration, or if I missed it entirely. Glenn, your thoughts?
I was thinking about the grace period comment, and I had just finished Eric Trump's book Under Siege, and he mentions in the book that there was about 17 minutes, I think he said, it was like 17 or 19 minutes, some very small number of minutes after Trump was inaugurated in 2017, before the first mainstream media, I forget the outlet, they had posted an article about now's the time to start impeachment. Like he was president for 20 damn minutes, and they had already written this article and they posted it on Inauguration Day. Like, what kind of grace period was that? Because they didn't write it within those. It was already planned out. There was never a plan for any kind of grace. And you are completely correct. Obama got so much grace, and probably more so than any president in my lifetime.
Well, the one thing that we know for sure is true, that 17-minute window in which there was a grace period for President Trump before they started calling for impeachments would have been only, 14 minutes if he were black. So
of course, because of racism.
Because of racism. Yes, exactly, Glenn. Thank you. You're catching on. Thank you for glomming on to the message here. It's yeah.
And it's tough as obviously a white man. I can't understand the experience of anyone other than white men because racism, right?
Because of racism. Yes.
No, but back in reality, I think it's very sad to see Michelle talk like this, and I don't know if she actually believes it. Like,
Yeah.
I think part of my brain says she doesn't believe this, but she thinks a lot of the audience believes it, so she's maybe playing into that idea, which is totally racist, by the way. But what if she does? Like, how sad is that to limit yourself by that?
That is the actual problem. Like, if they actually believe it, that's when you have a, like, uh-oh, like, we're gonna have to do something about this, because holy cow, this is where things go off the rails fast. Because when people, like, not to give any, no pun intended, not to give any grace to people who say things that they don't believe, but if you actually believe it, that's worse. And that's been a running theme on this show. Like, are they stupid, or do they actually believe this thing that they are saying? But fascinating. I guess we'll never know. But you know, as far as right now, I guess the only option is to take her at her word. Maybe she does in fact believe it, and maybe we are in fact doomed if more and more people start believing this. Producer Glenn, I will see you at the next privilege meeting, as you are white and I have been called white adjacent because I believe in conservative values, and the internet does not accept that. Are you bringing the chips and I'm bringing the salsa, or what how does the privilege meeting work that's coming up here?
It's proportionate to your privilege, so I'll be bringing more chips. You just bring a few.
Fantastic. This has been One Last Point. Thanks for tuning in.